So I'm Annette from Nothing Without Us, Stories and Discussions of Meaningful Inclusion. Today I have a very special guest. We have talked about the profitability of including people with disabilities, and we did have an episode a few months ago which showed that gaming companies have really increased their income and their profits by including people with disabilities, and they improved their profits significantly. And so that was really good, and we looked at it from the economics point of view. But now my student from the Met School, Liam Boyle, will be talking about the experience of it. And he has gone through not only gaming, but he has talked with somebody who does have a disability and games with a disability. And this is what he has come up with. Liam, take it away.
All right,
Good
yeah.
to see you.
Yeah, it's great to be doing this. So, to start, I want to talk because the I want to talk a little bit about the history of accessible gaming and representation in particular, because like on the timeline of gaming, this is like including disability in games is like not that new of a thing. Like games as far back as 2002's Sly Cooper, which features a character who has a combat wheelchair that makes that he built himself, which makes him one of the most powerful characters in the game.
Hmm.
And it like even like newer games are good about including disabilities as well, from like Beyond Eyes, which is a walking sim where you're a blind girl looking for her cat, and you need to do things like use audio cues to figure out when it's like safe to cross the street. And then the other sort of end of that is Perception, which is a horror game where you play as a blind woman, and part of the horror is the inability to visually see the environment or the monsters. But there's also then representation of like mental disabilities like Celeste, where the game uses the mountain that you are climbing as a metaphor for the main character's anxiety and depression, that she has to learn to accept this side of herself. And um, Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice, which is a very new game with a protagonist who is suffering from psychosis, but the developers were so committed to portraying it accurately that they worked with a neuroscientist and psychosis expert from the University of Cambridge. Like people who are doing, who are like making these representations in games are like dedicated to making them accurate and good. It's not just like people have gotten like conscious about doing it well in a way that is good, I think, but they also have gotten a lot better recently at reaching that same audience of people that they're trying to represent in their games.
That's good. Tell
The
me about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so the big way that they do that is both. I mean, the two biggest console companies, Xbox and PlayStation, have both released adaptive controllers that are controllers that come with like different accessibility options that one can configure so that they can play they can control a game however they are able to, and some do it better than others. The Xbox One is considered significantly better than the PlayStation One, especially with the additional toolkit by Logitech that contains even more options. Um, Whereas the PlayStation One has been criticized for a couple of design choices that they made, like only including one stick, whereas typically in most games you need one stick to move your character and the other stick to like move the camera or something. So um, that's a criticism that they've had, but on the whole, they have been pretty successful in expanding the audience of gamers, and they aren't even like they are. They did something that surprised me when I learned about it, but I'm really glad that they did, which was they made the controllers cheaper than or the same price as regular high-end controllers. Like they did not make them more expensive
Right.
than like, your nice PlayStation controller, which like it's they're not cheap because they're
Mm.
still nice controllers, but
Right.
they do not use um they don't use the accessibility of them to uptick the price, which I think is like really solid move on the company's part, which is not common as far as companies go, I find. But that was like a really decent thing of them to do, I think.
Agreed, agreed. That's really great. Yeah. Mm.
Um, the other thing is that even if someone isn't able to use the adaptive controllers, they do still have options. Talked to, I had an interview with a student at a Meeting Street school, wh- and this student was a wheelchair user who was also nonverbal, but he used a device called an accent, which basically allowed him to look at a screen to select a bunch of different buttons based on where exactly he was looking. And he could use that to communicate, he could use that to move his wheelchair, and he could use that to play video games, which
Wow.
I thought was
Cool.
so cool when I heard about it.
Yeah.
In He plays like racing games and virtual sports,
Oh,
and he I wasn't able to get a demonstration of it, unfortunately, because we did the interview at his school, and I don't believe he had the. I think he needed to hook it up to some hardware to use it. But I
right.
was able to see him using his accent, and it was like really impressive. The I'm I'm kind of in awe of the technology at display, but like he had said that he was satisfied. He like felt like he was getting a full gaming experience with only having to use his eyes to control the game, which I
Mhm.
thought was so cool.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I feel like accessible hardware has really taken leaps and bounds um, in like getting more people to be physically able to play video games.
Mm.
Um,
Technology today empowers people to do so many things that we could not do in the past. Um, and it empowers us to do just about anything we want. And
yeah, it's a really as much as there have been positives and negatives with the rapid development of today's technology, that is a massive positive,
yeah,
is that it allows so many people to do so many things,
right.
even
It
on a
does.
general scale.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think about all of this?
I think it's really, I think it's a promising trend that companies are starting to think about this. And like it isn't even just the hardware too, because the software, like the accessibility software of a lot of games um, has been getting better recently. The game everyone's talking about at the moment, or recently anyway,
Mm.
is The Last of Us Part Two, which has accessibility settings that are so incredibly deep and multifunctional that a completely sightless person can fully play the game in its entirety using audio cues for combat and narrated cutscenes. Which, again, another thing that was just like, that's so cool. Like the fact that we have reached the point where a like full on AAA video game intended for, people who don't have these impediments can still be played by someone who is like completely unable to see is like such an incredible, not only just example of technology, but also like it is great that this is something that big companies are thinking to do. Like, I think it's such a good thing for the future of gaming and the future of technology as a whole that like we are trending more considerate of like these sort of topics because it's a big thing.
It is a big thing, and I think it really fits the definition of meaningful inclusion.
Hmm.
Because when you've got two gamers side by side, one with a disability, one without, and you're on equal footing because of technology. And
That's like really that's
yeah,
awesome. That's such a
yeah,
cool situation.
it is. It is. And you need to know that if we can do it in gaming, we can do it in life. There is
Mhm.
no reason we cannot. So, do you have anything else you want to add?
Not beyond the fact that all of this makes me really hopeful for the future in a way that a lot of things in the recent past have not.
Right.
Like this, that sort of impulse of some people to go through the extra effort to do this is one that I really hope uh, keeps trending upwards in the years to come.
You and me both. And I do thank you for doing this. I'm glad you did this.
Yeah, it was no trouble. This is such a fascinating topic to
Well,
do some research on.
I'm glad you had that opportunity. So thank you for listening. I'm Annette from Nothing Without Us, Stories and Discussions of Meaningful Inclusion. If you like this, please drop us a like, subscribe, press that subscribe button, make some comments, tell us what you think of it. Will you be looking at these games and in the future yourself or for someone you know? That would really be good to know. And you can find this, if you want to tell your friends about this video, tell them it's on patreon.com/nothing without us. You'll be able to find it on YouTube. And you can find me on LinkedIn and Blue Sky. So until the next Nothing Without Us, I'm Annette.